So where are we? I mean, I listen to this budget, a nice cat, by the way. I listened to this budget, and now, just when many people are coming to the end of a fixed rate, they're hoping for interest rates to come down. And, of course, now we've got a Labour government in, now saying we're going to have a 4-day week, borrowing tons of money. That's inflationary. What's your reading of where we are?
Well, you have to. There's one word, remember, that runs an economy. It's called confidence. So did this budget actually encourage confidence? To whom? Whether it's consumers, you and me, going to spend some more money out for supper? Or is it going to be factories and more businesses investing in the UK? People external to the country actually wish to invest in the UK. And the answer is, when you look at the rising costs of this budget, well, actually, people turn around and say, we don't dislike Britain, but it's an expensive place to set up business. I tell you what, I'll go somewhere else. And the same also then applies to consumers. They don't feel confident either, so their hands get stuck in their pocket and don't come out clutching a £10 note. So the whole issue here is actually a concern with me of actually, look at that front bench. How many people have run a business, particularly a start-up business, where frankly, maybe it's your own house, so family money is on the line, and all this government's done for any of those people is increase the cost in terms of actual national insurance. But that's not a matter of actually the government pays for it. No. People running businesses have to pay for it. And so those elements which don't encourage the primary driver of this country. We're really good at setting up businesses in this country.
Yeah.
We're very focused on high tech around the country. That's the area you should be focusing on. Focus on where the growth is. Don't tell us what's wrong the entire time and stop beating me with a stick.
Well, I agree totally. And actually, those people should be rewarded for setting up those small businesses, the lifeblood of this country. And, of course, I'm not sure the Labour government, as you rightly say, has any clue what it's like to run a business. They're just crippling all of the people who employ people. And you've got big business figures and people I wouldn't necessarily expect. Simon Roberts, the chief executive of Sainsbury's, saying they're facing a barrage of costs. They're going to raise prices. They've been hit by £140 million because of the national insurance employer contributions. Ill thought through budget, in my humble opinion.
No, please don't be humble about it. It's quite right. Wills was not thought through what the impact was going to be. What you've got here, therefore, is increasing costs coming through, whether it's employees or in terms of actual goods as well, because if you have a position where if sterling weakens, well, it has been a little bit stronger the past week or so, you're going to be importing inflation. So for a government which said, actually, we're going to tackle inflation, this budget does the opposite. And the only reason I can think of why is because they don't have the experience. They blame the Bank of England for not necessarily changing rates. It's come down by a quarter. This should have come down way before.
So can I ask you about that? Why did it only come down by a quarter? Is it the fact that you've got people on the MPC who are not confident, or are they just, I don't know, are they not brave enough to bring those rates down?
Well, you have to look at the minutes, but I suspect when we can finally get the details out of it, they don't know which way it's going. The sails are flapping, but there's no direction. And this is actually when you need proper politicians, or effective politicians, telling you which way to go to give you confidence on it. Now, bear in mind, the Bank of England's only got one tool to actually control inflation, and that is putting interest rates up or down. But that doesn't necessarily help, actually, those people running businesses and setting them up. We've got something called the Enterprise Investment Scheme. We've got, we can make that regional investment scheme, so more investment around all the areas of the United Kingdom, not focused on the South East. These things aren't difficult, and more to the point, it doesn't cost the government anything, because what it does is provide a guarantee for part of that capital if the business goes wrong. But in the short term, it doesn't cost them. So that's really quite straightforward. Why not go for the easiest route and focus on those areas, which are the ones which are growing and are going to be our middle-sized businesses to come? Unfortunately, what happens with a lot of tech businesses, they are very successful, developing up. Okay, quite a lot fail as well. But our dear friends in America say, that's marvellous. Tell you what, why don't you come to California?
Yeah.
And so we lose those businesses over there, and we lose that opportunity to actually grow our small businesses into medium businesses, into, well, those large businesses, which unfortunately we seem to see fewer and fewer of. So we need more.
Well, I mean, when you look at Lord Rose, the ASDA chairman, he says this budget is very, very damaging, the tax rises. The businesses will be forced to look closely at how many people they can afford to employ. Now, at the same time, when you look at Trump and his victory over in the United States, he says he's going to essentially slash all of the spending. The Dow Jones gained 3.6% to close at a new record high. The S&P 500 went up 2.5%. The Nasdaq went up 3%. When you look at the verdict on the budget here in the UK, we saw the pound fall and gilts rise.
Oh, absolutely. Those are key indicators that the market doesn't like it. And the market's not stupid. What they're looking at and say, am I going to get a return from the United Kingdom of my money, not having to pay too much for it? Or actually, should I just go somewhere else? Because actually America shows signs of growing, which it does. Now, our economy is still growing, but instead of actually pressing an accelerator, we decided, well, we're growing a bit. Why don't we put the brakes on? No, that's not the time to do it. Inflation is relatively low. Yes, it could go lower. I understand. I suspect they probably think it's actually going to go higher in the next few months, which is possible, but no real sign of a great leap. No. Encourage those people who are actually moving the economy, small businesses, the consumer in terms of those wishing to buy a house. Because what happens when you buy a house? The kitchen goes, the bathroom goes, and you spend a lot of money with people coming in to actually decorate it, or probably fill up the holes that the builders didn't do in the first place. But all those elements, I mean, there are positive things they can do, as opposed to coming out after 100 days of doom and gloom, it's going to be a tough budget, then coming out with a budget which is, is it 40 billion or is it 22 billion? We don't know. More to the point, nor do they.
Neither do they. Justin, always a pleasure to talk to you. I think you need to go and feed Moggy now. It's Moggy's breakfast. Thanks, Justin. Really good to talk to you. Justin Urquhart-Stewart. It does seem that Britain is the only country now following Bidenomics. Well, joining me now is Erol Morkoc, who represents Republicans overseas. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on. I mean, look, Trump has won. You must be very pleased about that. As a result of that, as I was just saying, we're seeing all of the response from the Dow Jones up 3.6%, the S&P 500 up, NASDAQ up 3%. The US dollar now has the largest gain in 8 years as a result of that. And that is quite frankly because people are feeling optimistic, the markets are feeling optimistic because Trump wants a low-tax economy. We couldn't be more different in this country.
Exactly, and it's a tough situation for you guys with the current administration you have. We fortunately have got somebody like Donald Trump in charge, and his policies and his leadership is something the American people felt, and they gave him a mandate to come back in and actually enact these policies and grow the U.S. brand globally. And hopefully we can do that with our allies, especially the special relationship we have with the UK, and certainly the treatment that we intend to give to perhaps some adversaries in Asia, whether it be China or Southeast Asian competitors, perhaps in sectors that are competing against our hollowed out manufacturing class. I don't see the same exact circumstance playing out for the UK, which has a lot of medical. And medical, by the way, is Donald Trump is proposing tax-free worldwide trade. So that's really good for both of us. And a lot of our technology and high-tech stuff won't be affected in a negative way. So I think perhaps it can be a U.S. and England and the UK and Europe kind of coming together along with the new North American juggernaut that is the USMCA, which Trump will be able to renegotiate in 2 years, which is, especially fantastic because we're being a fluid, dynamic economy. If there's a mistake, if there's fissures, we fix it quickly. We're not caught up in this bureaucracy now, and that's a huge advantage.
It just feels to me the US is now very optimistic about its future. It feels the UK is very pessimistic about its future. I'll tell you someone else who's lying down in a dark room at the moment, and that's the European Union. They're very worried about Trump imposing tariffs.
And well, I mean, and in some respects they have to be because Donald Trump is an America First president. And you just saw recently Ursula von der Leyen, if I'm pronouncing it correctly,
von der Leyen.
Came out. Yeah, I tried. She came out and all of a sudden very keen to buy American natural gas.
Funny,
all of us. Yeah, and she mentioned the trade deficit. Very quickly, Europe's trying to see how can we make sure our cars are not tariffed going into the United States, along with our heavy industry and this like that. And they should be kind of afraid because to not go too detailed, the U.S. Security umbrella is how trade deals have been negotiated for the last 70 years. So Canada has the best trade deals in the world with the U.S. because they never had to concede anything because they naturally were under the U.S. Nuclear umbrella. In Europe, also, we've had to make a lot of concessions to our allies over the last 50 or 60 years that maybe has been detrimental to you. You don't see American-made cars in Germany, for example. You don't see American-made tractors. But that's also protectionist that is not a negative thing. So we have to work together, quid pro quo, and realize that our enemies aren't in Europe or in the UK, but rather we have to make sure that our companies aren't being taken advantage of, as well as we want to bring American tax dollars home, obviously, and that's not what you guys want, but we definitely would like to.
Well, can I just ask you, you mentioned the special relationship with the United Kingdom. I do like to think there is a special relationship. And Trump has actually made that point. We know he is very fond of the United Kingdom. His mother was Scottish. Do you think the UK is going to be in a better position than the EU?
I do, for a few reasons, and I think it has to do with the type of goods that we transact with each other, as well as the financial services sectors that are so intertwined. I think the EU is much more susceptible to these tariffs because they have a lot more unfair agreements with us than the UK. In addition, I think that the UK being a leader in medical field, medical supplies, medical technology and development, that's one thing that's going to have no tariffs on it, no taxes, is what Trump is proposing. And then if you look at it, you know, trade deals are oftentimes based on how reliable an ally is, and there's no better ally to the United States in the world than the UK, and I think that will come into play. Trump is an Anglophile. You mentioned his mother's from Fife, from Scotland. You know, he does have businesses interests in the UK all around, and certainly he doesn't want to jeopardize that. And he also does understand the internal workings of the UK business ecosystem maybe better than your average American who has never done business there. So I think he's somebody who's open to making deals. He's open to working with the UK. And thankfully, most of your industry isn't in heavy competition. Something like Land Rover or something luxury tax, I can see maybe that happening. But overall, I think you're in a good position.
Yeah, I think the Americans do like a Range Rover. They love a Land Rover. So we'll see about that. Eric, really good to talk to you. Thanks ever so much. Erol Morkoc there, who represents Republicans overseas. Thanks, Erol. Really